Hey everybody, video on time for the first time this week, yay. I am recording this last night, right after Andrew Gillum conceded Florida. The Georgia race is still a toss-up, but it's getting too late. I need to go to sleep, because you can still hear I'm not feeling well, but I wanted to make sure at least this got up because, yes, I am Canadian, but most of my audience is American, so I wanted to do a relatively brief thing on the midterm elections, not to sort of pick a side or anything like that, just to do analysis because I don't think there's enough of that. As of now, it looks like the Republicans are going to keep the Senate. The Democrats are going to retake the House. None of this is a surprise. Most of the toss-up races, the really exciting stuff like Beto O'Rourke, Andrew Gillum, stuff like that, broke to the incumbent. It broke to Ted Cruz, which really makes me mad. Not because Ted Cruz is a Republican. There are lots of Republicans I quite like. I'm happy Mitt Romney got a Senate seat. But I just don't like Ted Cruz. I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there. I just don't like Ted Cruz. But there's a hidden story that I think a lot of the pundits missed in terms of what's going to happen going forward. And that's the governor's races. And they're announcing a whole bunch of Senate seats, all that stuff. Tina Smith just was declared in Minnesota. But it's the governor's races, the net gain of 3 Democratic governorships at minimum. And those things are really important. And these are the things that drive me crazy about political coverage. They tend to nationalize races. And even though Canada is much more federalist than America is, our local stuff still matters very much. In the US, with its focus on states' rights, it matters even more. So the fact that the national media was so fixated on Trump that it didn't promote the governor's races other than Stacey Abrams in Georgia. I get why from a media ratings perspective, because Trump drives ratings, but from an actual public education perspective, this stuff drives me nuts. Because if you get a governorship, you have control over districting or, gerrymandering, as some people call it. I mean, gerrymandering is a real thing. It's been a real problem. It's part of the reason that despite Trump's historic unpopularity, the needle moved very little. But that's going to change in some very key states like Michigan, like I forget some of the others at the moment. I don't want to be wrong because people jump all over me for mistakes. But now the states themselves have an ability, and I really do hope that the Democratic incumbents manage to make fair districting and not just gerrymander the other way. That had really pissed me off. And I say that because with the Democrats retaking the House, probably, not sure for certain, and these critical governor's races, there's an opportunity here, and it's not to pass a liberal agenda. Wow, a couple of Texas seats have gone Democrat. That's very interesting. But there's an opportunity here not to advance a liberal or progressive agenda, but advance a democratic agenda, not Democratic Party, like small d democratic elections matter and are fair kind of agenda. And right now, I think that's more important because going forward, that will ensure that government decisions embody that idea that, you know, the long road of history bends towards justice. And I'm sure it will be very tempting for Democrats and you know, liberals on the whole to sort of stack the deck in the favor of their tribe. It is more important to reassert fairness in the American election system. And, you know, there's an element of that going on in Canada right now. I'm not going to bore you guys with that. I'll talk about that another day. But the most important thing that American politicians can do, or any politician can do right now, is restore faith in the fairness of the system. The bases are really energized right now, but you know, the vast majority of the country who is stuck in the middle, a lot of people feel like their vote doesn't count no matter who they vote for, and so they just don't bother, or they throw their vote away. And that's a much bigger problem than who's in the White House or who's in the Senate and who's in the House. Government doesn't work if the people don't believe in the righteousness and fairness of government. They have to believe that not just the people in government are advocating for them, but the system itself is actually working the way it should, which is representation of the people by the people. And I really do think Trump was a reaction. I mean, the people I spoke to who voted for Trump, and I know some people voted for the Supreme Court. I know that the people I spoke to personally, like online, that's not why they voted for Trump. They voted for Trump to burn it all down because they thought the system was so broken that you know, that it needed to be completely demolished in order to save anything. Now, I completely disagree. Any student of history knows that's not how it works. If a democratic institution falls, you get fascism. And if you want that, I read some history books. That is a scary proposition. But I really don't think most people actually want that. They just want someone with an ability to do something, with autonomy and agency, to frigging do something. I think the gridlock has frustrated a lot of people. And we're not that different up here. I mean, a lot of Canadians kind of look down their nose at the American system, but the reality is that, you know, we have our own baby Trumps up here, populists who really aren't necessarily inherently qualified for the job, other than that they can get people to vote for them. And really, in hard terms, that's the only qualification for the job. Getting elected and leading are completely different things. But I mean, Toronto, or Toronto as we say, elected Rob Ford, even though people see Toronto as liberal. The problem is a lot of Torontonians don't vote. And then Ontario elected his brother Doug Ford just recently because they were mad at the Liberal government. Now, for Americans, I know it's confusing. I always remind people, our Liberal government is our Liberal Party is our centrist party. They're not actually what you guys consider liberal. They're a centrist party. We actually have a centrist party in Canada. And that, I think, we greatly benefit from. The U.S. doesn't have a centrist. Well, you could claim, some people would claim America doesn't have a centrist party. Some people would say the Democrats are centrist and the Republicans are right, and so the left is not represented. Either way, I really think America could benefit from a third party. The problem is a lot of the laws in the U.S. aren't set up for a third party system. They need 50% support. Very few prime ministers up here, or even premiers. That's our equivalent of a governor, and prime minister is the equivalent of a president. Not really, but it's similar. The reason a prime minister isn't like a president, by the way, is because the prime minister is the leader of the party that wins the most seats. We do not directly elect our prime minister. It's just the leader of the party. Whereas, and yes, I'm covered in Momo hair. Whereas the US, you guys directly vote for your president. You have that electoral college system. So the idea of divided houses doesn't happen up here because our system of government is designed to work profoundly differently than the US one. But it's not better or worse. It's about what our systems are designed to accomplish. And the thing about the Canadian system is it's geared towards continuity, whereas the American system is geared towards compromise. If the Republicans and the Democrats don't learn to compromise, the system locks up. And that's what's been going on since W. Bush. Or maybe even before that. Now I'm questioning that. Did it lock up? It did kind of lock up under Clinton, didn't it? Yeah, it's been going back a while. And that's the difference between the two systems. And so Canada has been able to, we settled our abortion and gay rights debates long ago. We've taken a lot more steps towards trans inclusion and trans rights just because our system is all about continuity, not compromise. So a party gets into power and they can pass this stuff. US politicians actually have to start governing based on the way the system was designed to work. And it's funny because I'm kind of hyper aware of this because I'm playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey and they deal with some of the early fundamentals of democracy, which is, the Vox Populi, and then some sort of representation, the idea of the republic. And, the way a two-party system is designed to work is there's supposed to be like two sides and they find a way to meet in the middle, which is a wonderful theory, but we're not good at that in the modern world. And I'm going to end with my theory as to why. In recent memory, education systems have been pushed towards math and science, computers. I love my computers. I love my science. I understand math is necessary. Kidding. But history has really taken a backseat. And I think history is the most undervalued subject out there. Because you can be a whiz at science, you can be a whiz at computers, you can be a whiz at math, you can be amazing. You're thinking about peeing, aren't you? I know, good for you. You can be great at languages, you can be awesome at political science. If you do not have the historical underpinning of not only the reasons that things turned out as they did, but also the fundamental ethical underpinning of why the systems look the way they do, you will make uninformed choices that, while well-meaning, turn out to be wrong. And we are not going to fix the problems with democratic systems until we bring history back. Until people in general have a sense of their existence in the context of the greater timeline of humanity. And I don't know how we're going to do that because my stepbrother has a history degree and everybody joked that it was junk. And he's not working as a historian, but I really think that history is incredibly important and should be far more of a prerequisite in higher education than it is. Unfortunately, history has been replaced with this interdisciplinary studies crap that you guys know how I feel about that. But yeah, it tends to be history through the lens of politics. It tends to be history through the lens of, whatever special interest is trying to torque it to what they want, instead of what I was fortunate enough to get in high school, which was a very nuanced, very complicated education in Western civilization that gave us the good as well as the bad. And I really think that credit to Larry Martinello, who was my senior year history teacher. He had a profound impact on my thinking, not just what I think, but how I think. Because what I think continues to change, but how I think has been fairly consistent. And with refinements, of course. But that's where I really think we're at. My hope for the Democratic takeover of the House is that they will, instead of pursuing a liberal agenda, they will pursue a fairness agenda with the idea that everyone gets heard, not just people on the right team. And there are a lot of people that will disagree with me about that, because I think, well, the other side's not playing fair, so why should we? And that's what history teaches, right? Why should we? Well, because if somebody's not doing it, then nobody's doing it, and we're worse off. As long as we preserve the fundamentals of democracy, then the right things will get decided, not as quickly as we'd like it to, but faster than the alternative, which is the public doesn't trust anybody. The system doesn't work the way it was intended, and things just get done based on consolidation of power as opposed to the will of the people or even the right thing to do. And yes, I'm aware those two things are not necessarily the same thing all the time. So I'll leave you with that because my voice is starting to go and I'm starting to, but I hope you enjoyed that. If you didn't, oh well. If you did, awesome. And, right, I gotta do Patreon. Help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching. Bye.